In our first video this week, we're looking at a couple different sets of leadership styles. And the three that you can see here, there's transactional and charismatic on the bottom, and the top is transformational. And transformational leadership is what we're really going to be talking about the most and what we're sort of aiming towards. There will be some comparisons of the other two, which we're going to do briefly, and then we'll spend the bulk of the video talking about the benefits of transformational leadership. So the first thing to do is to distinguish transactional from transformational leadership, and we see some examples between the two here. However, I think the most important one is our top one here, the focus on goals versus the focus on vision. Transactional leaders are often set towards certain goals, and there are sometimes where being a transactional leader is important. For example, accounting. It's important that you get your reports in quarterly. Another great example would be a foreman in a factory, right? It's really important to hit those production goals. But transformational leadership is a little bit larger. You can think of the difference between sort of tactical, managing pieces on a chessboard versus strategic, winning the game of chess or succeeding in business or succeeding at higher levels of leadership. So transactional leadership focuses on goals, on targets, and transformational leadership focuses more on the broader vision of the organization. Charismatic leadership, on the other hand, when compared to transformational, as we can see, there's different personality characteristics that show up, different behaviors and effects that occur on followers. Charismatic leadership is what I would definitely call something like diet transformational leadership, right? So transformational leadership encourages things like diversity of opinion, pushing back, a clear sounding board, allowing people to question leadership, not in a destructive way, but in a constructive way. Charismatic leadership, though, is more about having a vision and converting people to your faith, so to speak, getting everyone on the same page through just your sheer force of will or your sheer dominant personality. And we'll see, probably some of the darker sides of charismatic leadership here in a second. So here we have several examples of charismatic leaders, right? We see everyone on here from Charles Manson to David Koresh to Jim Jones to the founder of the Moonies. None of these are great people. None of them are role models. None of these are people we should emulate. They are all cult leaders. And taken to its extreme, charismatic leadership is a lot like being in a cult. It's a matter of conversion to the faith, of standing by the leader, of conforming your will to the leader's will. And that's really the key point to understand with charismatic leadership is it's a lot less like transformational leadership than it sounds like on paper. Really taken to its extreme, charismatic leadership is not merely a cult, it can become a cult of personality. Think of a North Korean style military junta, right? As Tolyakov notes, people recognize exceptional spiritual qualities of a charismatic leader. Therefore, they are submitting to him. So we are talking about spiritual formation of charisma. Becoming means the movement to implement the absolute ideal. And that really is the dark side of charismatic leadership. Of course, it's good to have charisma. That's definitely a great character trait. So, how could we harness charisma to be better leaders? Well, the way we harness our charisma to become better leaders is to become transformational leaders. Transformational leaders, as we noted earlier when compared to transactional leaders, focus on a vision. They also are bound by practicality. They encourage feedback, they encourage criticism, and they encourage people to push on them. And we look at the group of leaders that we see present here. We see everyone from great scientific minds like Einstein or Darwin who challenged the paradigms of their time and pushed science forward in a great way, leading by example, and also willing to accept criticism. We see also famous religious figures like Gandhi and Pope John Paul II, both of whom were criticized widely for various beliefs they had. For example, in Gandhi's case, nonviolent protest. Same as Nelson Mandela, another man on the slide. Other men like Lincoln and Churchill also here were willing to use violence to accomplish a goal, but they were transformative. One was trying to save the republic, the other the world from Nazi tyranny. And in their cases of working together, they not only inspired people through charisma, through great speeches, but also through their actions. There are many stories of all of these people acting in ways which are humble and open to criticism and open to challenge. And I think one of the greatest examples of this is a fairly obscure figure that I'll now talk about for a minute. So the person pictured here is a fairly obscure historical figure, unless you're really into certain parts of American history. This is Chief Joseph of the Nez Perce tribe, and he was one of the last great warriors in the Plains Wars, the wars of basically white people moving out and exterminating much of the Native American population. But he sort of sought near the end of his life to work together and to transform not only Indian society, but white society to sort of recognize and give more rights and privileges and equal treatment to the Indian people and the Native American tribes. And a great example is a short quotation that he has. He says, "If the white man wants to live in peace with the Indian, we can live in peace. There need be no trouble. Treat all men alike, give them all the same law. You might as well expect the rivers to run backwards as that any man who is born free should be contented when penned up and denied liberty to go where he pleases." And this is a lot of what Chief Joseph talks about. He sort of transformed not only the expectations of his people, but of the white American majority at the time, and sort of convinced the government to open more land to reservations. We go to Southeastern Oklahoma State University, which the Supreme Court has just recognized as an established reservation, along with much of Eastern Oklahoma. And it wouldn't be for nothing if it weren't for the people like Nez Perce and, or I'm sorry, Joseph of the Nez Perce and his transformative leader style that ultimately ended up securing a better world for him and his tribe. And there's still many difficulties today, but it was a big accomplishment, especially given the historical context in which he lived. So to conclude, transactional leadership is goal-focused leadership. It's fantastic when you're trying to run very specific processes within a company, and it focuses on things like direct reward and punishment. Charismatic leadership is a leadership style that basically relies on a cult or cult of personality movement. It requires followers to conform themselves to the vision and ideals of the leader. The epitome of good leadership then is transformational leadership, which weds the two together in a way that's positive. It allows for goals to be set, it allows for visions to be clear, but it allows a more participative form of these visions. It allows for pushback, it allows for criticism and reformation, but at the end of the day, it is still a leadership style that focuses on completing tasks, on having a vision, on sharing that vision, and on encouraging others to follow the vision and sort of integrate it into their lives in a way that makes sense to them and in a way that allows them to be the most productive within the bounds of that vision.